recently I started watching this channel on YouTube. Basically, this channel is a Quran channel. It has like a thumbnail on the video of some sort of like random thing that you couldn't like make heads or tails of. And then as you go in, the guy just starts Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and starts reciting the surah. And the surah this guy was going through was Surah Yusuf. Now, I will not make the claim that I can speak Arabic with any sort of fluency, but I kind of go through Surah Yusuf every Ramadan, right? And I kind of tried to learn Arabic, so as I was listening to the thing, I was getting most of it. And one of the things that really caught me as I was listening to Surah Yusuf is Yusuf goes to jail. Okay, basically, Yusuf refuses to simp. Some lady. Yusuf was taken in by a family. Basically, Yusuf is taken in by this family. Okay, his brothers throw him in the well. He's bought as a slave. He's sold to this family, and this family practically contains the most important people, at least, is Al Aziz, a powerful guy, statesman sort type, and his wife. Okay, so the wife of Al Aziz, as Yusuf grows up, starts to like fall in love with Yusuf or something of the sort, and one day, right, she's probably been trying stuff like this before, but it gets to her head where she locks him in a room and she says, "Hey Talakani, come over here," and she's inviting him to commit ma'asiyah with her. Okay, you know what I mean. And Yusuf refuses to send. He says, Ma'adullah, innahu rabbi ahsanu mathwaya. I seek refuge from Allah. Verily, what my Lord has is better than this and all of this. And he wanted to do it, but he fails Allah, so he stops himself. And later on, she just keeps trying, and eventually, when he completely refuses, she gets him thrown in jail. She gets him thrown in jail. He interprets the dream of these two guys, and they're these two guys who are in a cell with him. And for a good reason, he believes that one of them is going to get out. So he tells this guy, when you get out, make sure you tell your master about me, because the master of this guy is going to be like a really important person in the state. I'm pretty sure it was even the king himself, right? And the guy forgets. And so Yusuf has to stay in jail for another few years. And every time I used to read that, the sheer injustice of what has happened would always strike me, because this guy is in jail because of some like political conspiracy, because he didn't do anything wrong except not doing, someone, and now he's in jail, and Allah just leaves him to rot in jail for another few years. And I also always wondered, like, why? Whoa. And there was many reasons that came into my head, but the one that I heard, and the one that makes the most sense to me now, is Allah wanted Yusuf to rely on him and not on other people. Like, Yusuf wanted this guy to go to his Lord, who would then be like, "Oh wow, they did you like that," and then he would probably try and solve that sort of thing. And Allah wanted him to just rely on Allah. And you see, the reason why that makes sense, not the reason why that makes sense, if you think about it, that's applicable to like a lot of things. You see, the most successful people, if we're talking in general, the most successful people have a high sense of self-responsibility. That is to say, I'm not sure if I'm paraphrasing this right, but these are the people who are the least likely to look at a problem and blame it on something that is outside of themselves. Okay? Because when you think of a problem like that, whether it's true or not, what you're doing is you're taking power from yourself and giving it to somebody else. Okay, you're relying on somebody else and you're giving the onus of somebody else to be able to solve this thing that is disturbing you. So, for example, Yusuf, with this, uh, with this problem of his of being in jail, for false reasoning, he was when he asked this guy to call on his master, he was technically taking the onus of getting himself out, of him getting out of jail, and putting it on this guy's master, or really on this guy, because this guy went and then didn't remember at all to, tell his master about this thing until a few years later. And in various verses in the Quran, it says that like whatever bad things happen to you, it is because of what your own deeds have reaped. Not to make anybody superstitious, but usually if something bad happens to you, it's because of a habit that you have, right? It's more about how you reacted to a thing than the thing that actually had happened, like most of the time, right? And you see, the thing is, in terms of this attitude, okay, because sometimes I think of this a lot, like, I'm personally not where I want to be in life, right? And when I start thinking and ruminating about these things and I get mad about it, it's like, if person X hadn't done X, and if person X would just do more of Y, and stuff like that, and it goes on, and nothing really changes year after year. And the reason why is because I think, okay, Allah is trying to teach me as He tried to teach Yusuf, right? That the person that you should be relying on to solve your problem is Allah, okay? Because after this, what Yusuf does, right, is when a few years pass, and basically this guy who he had told to go call his master comes to him and he needs his help. And Yusuf gives him his help. He explains the dream that the king had without asking for anything in return. And when he does this, right, the king himself, okay, Yusuf didn't ask anybody. The king himself was like, yo, who's this guy? And at that point, Yusuf now has that leverage to be, and he says, yo, ask the king what happened in terms of this thing. And it's his case about, the woman who got him falsely imprisoned, and eventually his name is cleared and all of this stuff. But it was a subtle shift. This, at first, Yusuf was using his skill to try and get people to want to help him. And the other, few years later, he was just trying to use his skill to help people, and that was it. So, the first thing that you should do is that you shouldn't rely on other people or blame other people or think it has anything to do with other people, the situation that you're in your life. You are in the situation that you are in your life because Allah wrote it down, like when He created the heavens and earth. So don't put it on other people. Think about why Allah has put you here and then act accordingly. And the second thing is, if you want to get what you want in life, first of all, you need to stop thinking about your actions in that manner. So, generally, you'll think, I want to do X so that I can get Y, and then Y is the thing that I want. What you actually need to think about doing is actually just serving, okay? Like there's an ayah in Quran where it says, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكْرًا. We feed you, we give you zakah for the face of Allah, okay? Because we're seeking the pleasure of Allah. We don't want from you anything in return or any thanks. And if you think about it, the most successful people are the people who are able to delay gratification. And gratification is basically enjoying what you wanted that you got as a result of your work, right? Because if you work and you work hard and you're thinking about what you're doing, eventually you're going to get to certain destinations. You're going to get certain things that you are looking for. If you're able to delay gratification, it just compounds and those things, add up and add up and add up. But if you are unable to delay gratification, well, you enter into a phase of comfort. In comfort, there is no growth. Okay? So the people who are able to grow the most and get to the highest places in their life are those people who are able to delay gratification the most. And you delay gratification by continuing to serve. So, it's like, there was this guy, he's called Nuruddin Zengi. Basically, he's like Turkish guy back in the day, Sultan, very religious dude. He was, along with Salahuddin, one of the reasons why Palestine was freed the first, right? He once was riding on a horse with somebody, right? And he rode back and forth, and he said something about how dunya is like the shadow. The more you run towards it, the less you are able to catch it. But the more you run away from it, the more it chases you. And that was definitely true in his life. And I think in terms of any Muslim who is like really successful, whether you're talking about the early Ottoman sultans until, that guy who just had like 600 children, if you're talking about Turkish sultans before that, like Nuruddin, if you're talking about the Abbasid caliphs and all that stuff, as a Muslim, the way to get the most out of this world is to just run away from it. So, stop blaming people for your problems, because Allah decided you're going to have those problems, and the people were just a means to do that. So don't even start getting mad about it. And you can tell when Yusuf, this chick imprisoned him, right? Got him in prison for years. He did not seek any retribution against her when he got free. All he wanted was for his master, her husband, to know that he didn't betray him. That was it. He didn't seek any vindication, and he was in a position after that to do it. He could have done anything to that woman. By the time the story was over, he could have done anything. But you need to divorce yourselves from these things. The people who did whatever to you, the things that you want as a result of your striving. Just seek to serve Allah as best as you can, and all of these things are going to come into place on their own. And that's the end of my TED Talk.